morning to you all. Let me at the very outset express my deepest sense of gratitude to General Arun Sani, DSM, USM, SMBSM, for having accepted this invitation to deliver this talk today. And it happened at a very short notice, sir. Thank you. I'm very grateful to you. I'm also grateful to the former Director Generals who are here, General P.K. Singh, who is the Director of USI, Mr. and Mrs. John Khathing. Really privileged that you took the time off to be here. The serving senior officers, tertiary, other veterans who are here, officers from not just the Army, Navy. Of course, I also see officers from Coast Guard and CAPF. Very nice to have you all here. I see some members of the media also. We are truly privileged to conduct this talk this year, and as General Sharma told you, this is the third in the series of talks that we've had here. General Sharma sir surely will take forward all those recommendations that you gave, where Assam veterans could pitch in more and do more justice to the academic development of our officers also. I noticed that a vast majority of you would not be fully aware of the background of Assam rifles, and then we'll look at the history, and then, like General Sharma said, tell you a little about what we are doing currently. So going back in time, we were raised in 1835 as the Kachar Levy. This was essentially a force of about 750 people to safeguard the people, the plainsmen of Assam, from the marauding tribesmen in the hills. So from there we've come a long way. Today we have 46 battalions in the force. But if I go through the history, after raising, we fought in both the world wars, but before that we had different nomenclatures. Like I said, at the time of raising we were called as Kachar Levy. Then sometime in 1862 we were called as the Assam Frontier Police. 20 years later in 1882 that changed to Assam Military Police. Then in 1913 we were called as the Eastern Bengal and Assam Military Police. And for the great job done by Assam Rifles, by us in 1917 during the First World War, immediately after that we were named as Assam Rifles, and that name has really stuck. Thereafter, as we went, not just did our name change, but our roles also evolved over a period of time. We took part in both the world wars, like I said. In the Second World War in particular, of which I'd like to make a mention, we were called as the Victor Force, and we were tasked to operate behind the Japanese lines in Burma, caused a lot of delay and attrition, which our men did. And it would interest you to note that just 6 days back, I met a veteran, Haldan Nair in Mokokchung, just 6 days ago. And this NCO is a decorated person. He's got Ashok Chakra class 3, which is now called as Shaurya Chakra. But more importantly, he's a person who's taken part in the Second World War as part of the Victor Force, and then he fell back and fought the Battle of Kohima and also Battle of Imphal. Incidentally, at 103 years old, he still walks Ramrod Street, and very recently we felicitated him. You will find that on our social media. Then in 1959, when the Dalai Lama came across from Tibet, we were the first to receive him in March 1959 by 5 Assam Rifles. In the Sino-Indian conflict of 1962, Assam Rifles was deployed in all the important valleys in Arunachal Pradesh. We were there in Tawang, we were there in Subansiri sector, we were also there in the Lori Valley. And all these places, we were at the forefront. Our soldiers imposed the necessary delay before the Indian Army troops could come and deploy alongside. During the 1965 and 1971 war, since the army units moved out from the northeast for the Indo-Pak war, we took responsibility of all the insurgency-related action. In fact, we've been doing that from 1955, 1956, when insurgency sprung its ugly head in Nagaland. Like I said, today we have 46 battalions, and of these 46, 44 are in the northeast, 2 are in JNK. 20 of these 44 are in border guarding role, the others are in CICT role. We also did take part in Op Power and in JNK Op Raksha in the 1990s, which is also called as the golden era of Assam Rifles, because huge number of successes we had. I would like to make a mention of 7 Assam Rifles, which in May 1991, in a single operation over 72 hours led by the JCO, had the great honor of eliminating 78 militants in one operation, and with a catch of 118 weapons, of which more than 100 were from the 80 series. This is an all-time record which is probably not known to very many people. Recent developments I'd like to mention two. One is in 2020, there was this NDRF battalion which was created by us and shared to the NDRF. This battalion is currently located in Ludhiana. They are responsible for all disaster-related issues in J&K and Punjab and Haryana. Mahilas came to us, Mahila soldiers, you see some of them sitting here behind you. They got inducted in 2015. We have a sanctioned strength of 3,000 Mahilas. Today we have about 1,832 Mahila soldiers in the force. They're doing a tremendous job. In J&K we have 60 of them. Whenever I visit Northern Command, the Army Commander there keeps requesting that we want more Mahilas. That's for the simple reason that their service there is quite unmatched, and of course Indian Army doesn't have Mahila soldiers as of now, other than the CFP. We also have about 30 of them in various UN missions deployed. Now, let me come back to the topic proper, which is the war and security scenario in Northeast India and its strategic implications. Jen Sharma has already given you a brief introduction of what the topic is all about, but I would just like to touch upon a few issues where I want to tell you how significant is this region and how less known is it amongst most of us. So while Jen Sharma did tell you of the geostrategic importance of this region, like it does between Southeast Asia and the West, traditionally our focus has always been on the north or to the west. But going forward, as time goes by, as some of the young officers are seated here, when they reach our stage, I'm sure times will be very different, and we would see a huge connectivity happening towards Southeast Asia from the northeast. Jen Sharma spoke about the neighboring countries. 99% of the borders that the northeast states share are with the 5 countries that are here. With China, we share about 1,000 kilometers. With Bangladesh, of the 4,000 plus 6 kilometers of boundary that we share, about 2,000 is in the northeast. With Bhutan, we share about 650 kilometers, and with Myanmar, 1,643 kilometers. This is just a rundown, but I want you all to appreciate the fact that if there's anything that happens in these countries, there are implications for our country, also as evidenced by what is happening today in Myanmar. I'll speak about the security situation overall. As you would all know, in the last decade plus, the levels of insurgency has surely come down a lot. Levels of violence, levels of people killed has come down. Except now, if you look at this year, Manipur stands out, but Manipur is not an insurgency situation, as our CDS has already highlighted many months ago. So I reiterate that it is not insurgency situation. Neither is it a religious divide as some people make it out to be. It is not. So what has happened in Manipur from the 3rd of May, since everything seemingly went wrong, is we have done very many things along the army. If I have to give you facts and figures, the day that we were called on the 4th of May, 28 columns of us got deployed straight away. And few days later, at the peak, we had about 120 columns. The army had about 70 columns. That is in all 200 columns. I'm still not counting the CFF columns. They were also there. But today, things have more or less stabilized. The number of columns have reduced. Assam Rifles is about 90 columns today, and Indian Army has about 40 columns. That makes it 130. However, sporadic incidents of violence will continue to happen, as it happened 3-4 days back, when 13 Metis were killed in an area which was close to the Indo-Myanmar border. So with these kind of incidents that often clear up the situation, but what is really of concern today is, in fact, there are two things. One is the large number of weapons that are there out with the public. You would know, as you would have read from the media, there are close to 5,600 weapons which got taken away, looted, whatever you may call it. Of those 5,600, only about 1,500 odd weapons have come back. The rest are all there, and still not counting on the ammunition. Ammunition is more than 1 lakh. But there is a great degree of cooperation that has happened between all these security forces, as a consequence of which, in spite of what happened 4 days back with these 13 people who were killed, we were still able to keep the situation under control. But the second thing, which is more important other than the weapons, is the corruption of minds, the manner in which the people have got polarized. Two sections have got polarized. This is something which will take time before we can get back to normalcy, and that is surely an area of concern. So, when all this happened, what did we do? When it all started on the 3rd of May, what did Assam Rifles do? We stopped the levels of violence. We prevented both the communities from fighting each other. We took people to safe areas, put them in camps. Most of these camps were initially run by us. Now, of course, most of them are run by the state. We helped people move from the areas where they didn't belong to the areas where they belong. We helped the national highways to remain open, thereby ensuring that necessary supplies were given to the people. And more importantly, from the very first day, beginning from our company commanders right upwards to the IG level, we have one IG here sitting today in our presence, IG East. They have been engaging the civil society organizations, and in the Northeast, mind you, these are very important bodies who hold sway over the opinions of the masses. Now let me come to ethnicity and ethnic conflict. Northeast, as you would all know, has been besieged with ethnic conflict over a long period of time. Today we have 45 million people there speaking over 320 languages, and of the tribes, of the 630 tribes that are there notified in the Indian Constitution, 1/3 of them belong to the Northeast. An area of concern that I wish to always also flag here is the huge amount of contraband and drugs. And if I again have to give you certain facts, this year we have caught contraband. I'm talking of Assam Rifles, just Assam Rifles. The police and other agencies would be, that's different, I'm not counting in this. The fact is, this year we've caught contraband worth 1,700 crores. Last year it was worth 800 crores. Year previous to that, 2021, it was 1,500 crores. Now you just add this all up, it is 4,000 crores of contraband, of which 90% is drugs. Now this is a great area of concern, and what you need to remember is that all this has happened despite what's happening in Myanmar. Myanmar, as you all would know, is in a very disturbed state on 1st of February 2021, and despite that you have this huge amount of contraband which you have got, and I am very sure it is just the tip of the iceberg. Another perspective that I want you to be aware is that it is not just the Northeast. Look at the countries in the neighborhood there, whether it is Myanmar, whether it is Thailand, whether it is Laos. In all these three countries also, the contraband haul has been the largest in the last 3 years. So just try and think, is there some external force which is by design doing this? We cannot rule that out. Think of which country that could be. I leave it to you. Now, the next area of concern, of course, is the natural resources degradation that has happened there in terms of uncontrolled mining at very many places. Now this has really caused a lot of environmental damage, as also displaced people. But now most of the state governments are getting their acts together, things are more streamlined, and I think this issue would be addressed. Let me speak about our northern university. Major Sharma again told you that he's been having a mischievous role to play in everything that has happened in the Northeast. And let's go back in time, beginning in the late 50s, where there was the Naga insurgents, followed by the Mizo insurgents, followed by the valley-based insurgent groups of Manipur, and later by the Assam insurgency. The Chinese have had a major role to play in that. In fact, today, as we speak, also Paresh Barua is being hosted by the Chinese. Why I'm talking about this is you need to again think a little beyond. Today, if you say Manipur is disturbed, what is the importance of Manipur? A complete Act East policy hinges on Manipur. And why only Manipur? It's because of the connectivity that is there from Manipur into Myanmar. It has the best terrain. You have the Kabau Valley, all the road communications, etc., which are present as also futuristic, will come through Manipur. Not as much from Nagaland, not as much from South Arunachal Pradesh, or for that matter, even Mizoram because of riverine trade. Now, let me speak a little about Bangladesh and Myanmar. I'll begin with Bangladesh. You all are aware that we share a very healthy relationship with Bangladesh. It's been so for the last 15 years plus. There are many projects that have got initiated. Border disputes, most of them have been resolved. Bangladesh has helped flush out most of the incidents that were there residing in Bangladesh. In the recent past, just about a month plus back, was this connectivity collaboration which happened. Agartala-Khora rail link, the Khulna-Mongla port rail link, and the Medway Super Thermal Power Plant Phase 2, or Unit 2 as it is called. All these got launched very recently, and it is in continuum of what has happened earlier. But what we need to think now is, while you had a pending government, you have elections now coming up in a month's time in Bangladesh. So will the present government, Khaleda Zia's government, Awami League, come back to power? One is not very sure. There have been a lot of street protests. There have been statements made by the US, as also some actions taken by them, which are not very encouraging. And if Awami League doesn't come back to power, we have a mix of the BNP, JEM, and Jatiya Party, etc., coming to power, we will be in for trouble. So that is something that you need to keep in mind. Let me talk of Myanmar. I have a couple of slides to show. I just want you to have a look at these three maps that are there of Myanmar. This is how Myanmar is. Look at the 1643 kilometers, which is on the northwestern side. Next. Kaladan multimodal project. I'm sure Jan Sani will be speaking about this. Probably he would have it in his maps as well. Going to be a major game changer. This was almost getting completed in December this month, but because of the situation in Myanmar, it is stopped now. Next. And then there is this trilateral highway which will connect from India, it will go to Myanmar, it will go to Thailand, but it also can go further down to Malaysia and Singapore. Thank you. So, why I'm showing you this is because today, if these projects have to fructify, we need a situation where Myanmar is calm, which it is not. Beginning February 2021, you have these disturbances happening. Today, as we speak, what is of concern in the last 2 weeks especially, there have been almost 200 posts of the Myanmar army, or Tamadaw as it is called there, also called as Junta. 200 plus posts of the Myanmar army have been overrun by the PDF, also called as the People's Democratic Force. So they have overrun this, and there are a lot of refugees who are coming into Mizoram. In fact, we also had a case where over 159 Myanmar army soldiers got across and came into Mizoram. We gave them a safe exit from Myanmar. But the point is, if the Myanmar army also tumbles, whom do we talk to? That is something that we need to think about. So what is the way forward as I see it? Obviously, we have to increase our presence there, increase our military capabilities, the economic cooperation, and diplomatically we need to engage all these countries here because they are in the neighborhood. I'm emphasizing on Myanmar and Bangladesh, but like Major Shah said, it is equally applicable for Bhutan, it's applicable for Nepal as much. Next, we need to look into the border management and security cooperation. Border management itself is a huge challenge for us with all this migration that is happening, particularly with respect to what's happening in Myanmar. Just for your information, you should be aware that the border, Indo-Myanmar border, this is a question which keeps getting asked very often. Why don't you fence the border, like the Bangladesh or the Pakistan border? Well, there is something called the free move regime between India and Myanmar. It's a very unique element that exists only between these two countries. Myanmar doesn't have it with any of its other 5 neighbors, nor does India have with any other neighbors. So very unique setup where people staying 40 kilometers on either side of the 16 kilometers either side of the border can cross without any visa or passports and stay for 14 days. Now this is essentially to do with the deep connect, social connect, ethnic connect, historical connect that people across the border have. So it's near impossible to have this complete area fenced, not because of this reason, but also because of reasons of the terrain and the weather that is there. So what we have plans for, or the government has plans in place, is to create something called as the HSS, or also known as the hybrid surveillance system. In this, what will happen is there will be sensors, cameras, radars, drones, lights, etc., which will come up, and it will be a mix of a physical fence and a smart fence on certain stretches from where migration or refugees come in or the militants move across. There is a need for also strategic partnership and engagement with other countries who are here. You all are aware that at one time what used to be called as Asia Pacific is now called as Indo-Pacific by the world. Increasingly, the powers that be, the important countries are all engaging in this region. And we need to get into strategic partnership with all these countries, whether it is Quad, in some way be part of AUKUS, and other regional groupings. Next is inclusion in talks and meaningful dialogue. Now this is again a place where I keep getting asked many times. For years together, we are having talks happening. Naga, for example, since 1997 when the first ceasefire of recent times was signed. It's been so many years, it's almost 23 and 26 years. But if you look at it from the perspective of the people of the Northeast, there is no way other than talks. It may not yield results straight away, but you have to ensure that the government is doing satisfaction of all the groups that are involved in this. And the last 2 points are, of course, the socio-economic development of the region needs to be undertaken in the last decade. What you please do is that the number of airports, the number of roads, the waterways, and the rail projects have developed in a fantastic manner. Today, all these states which didn't have, state capitals which didn't have rail connectivity are going to have them in a very short time. And my last point, of course, is the Eastern Gateway. We talk of Act East. Now, Act East can be done only through the Northeast. You have to first act in the Northeast. And for that, you have to have a gateway which helps you get there in the first place. So other than the Siliguri corridor, you need to think beyond. You need to go through Bangladesh to ensure that development happens in the Northeast, and thereafter you go forward and get into the Act East policy. With that, I would like to end, and I would now request Del Sari to kindly come over and enrich us more with his knowledge. So,